Reddit, what is the most mind-boggling fact you know? In World War II, a Hungarian mathematician named Abraham Wald developed a counterintuitive method for armor plate placement while studying damaged aircraft. He observed planes returning home from sorties with large holes in them, and was tasked with figuring out where to put armor plates. His crucial insight was to not put armor plates where the holes were. The holes in the aircraft that returned represented damage that did not impact the ability of the planes to return home. In other words, he made the critical observation of the bias in the data he was observing. He was only looking at planes that survived. With this knowledge, he instructed armor to be placed in areas that were not damaged, because if these areas were hit, there would be no damage in that component in the planes that returned home. The inscription on the One Ring from Lord of the Rings is not actually Elvish, which quite a few people mistake it to be, but an entirely different language that Tolkien created called the Black Speech of Mordor or Orcish. Tolkien has stated that he came up with the Black Speech by thinking of the most horrible things in his life, in particular his experiences from World War I, which is why when you hear the Black Speech, such as when Sauron speaks it in LOTR and The Hobbit, it sounds like a dialect sent straight from heck. He grew to be disgusted by the language he created so much that when a fan sent him a wine goblet with the One Ring's inscription on it as a gift, he used it as an ashtray. The Elvish confusion comes in because the inscription of the One Ring is Black Speech written in Elvish script, like Chinese being written using English characters, for example. All of the solid objects around me are actually vibrating. Saudi Arabia imports sand and camels from Australia. 43% of all people born prior to 1800 died before the age of 5. People have graffitied dongs onto the Great Wall of China that have existed for longer than the USA. Cicadas live underground for several years and emerge only to reproduce. The number of years they take to come above ground is mostly a prime number. Each species has its own prime number of years they stay underground. The reason to be a prime number is that it reduces drastically the chance of two different species meeting above ground in the same year and crossbreed, weakening the genes of both species. Indiana legislators tried to legally define pi as 3.2 and almost succeeded. In the mid-1880s, aluminum was more valuable than gold. Now we use it expendably to wrap food. Fun side fact, it was used to cap the top of the Washington Monument due to its initial value at the time. North American area codes were originally assigned based on population size and the ease of dialing on a rotary phone. 212 went to New York, fastest dial time possible for the most phoned area. 312 for Chicago, Alaska got 907. Mind you, this was when only 1 or 0 could be the middle digit in an area code. If you add up your area code with 0 being 10, you get a numerical ranking of your city-state's relative importance, if you will. This is no longer true as any 3 numbers can be used for an area code, so these original area codes, like rotary phones, are a relic of the past. Olympus Mons on Mars, the tallest known mountain in the solar system, is so large at its base that an observer on its peak wouldn't know he was standing on a mountain because its slope would be obscured by the curvature of the planet itself. It's so tall that it has 5-mile-high sheer cliffs at its base. Imagine looking at a solid wall that's roughly the height of Mt. Everest, and that's just at the bottom. The placebo effect can still happen when you know you're taking a placebo. That if sound waves could travel through space, the sun burning would sound as loud as a chainsaw at about 10 meters. There is microscopic organism called a tardigrade, also water bear, which can survive extreme environments, including the vacuum of space, by dehydrating its body and basically putting itself into stasis. Then, when conditions improve, it absorbs some water and goes back to doing whatever it does. They have been sent into space and not only survived, they multiplied. Male Irish mummies are often found with nipple mutilations, leading many experts to believe Irish leaders may have worn nipple rings, as kissing a king's nipple was believed to be a sign of respect. A supernova seen from the distance the sun is to the earth will be brighter, in terms of energy delivered to your retina, than a hydrogen bomb pressed against your eyeball, by 9 orders of magnitude. we could assign an IPv6 address to every atom on the surface of the Earth. From the time that it was discovered, 1930, to the time that it was declassified as a planet, 2006, Pluto made less than a third of a full revolution around the sun. That's like saying Pluto was a planet for less than a year. Cortés landed in South America of the New World and spread diseases that after 80 years killed 21 million natives. 21 million people in 80 years. That's 262,500 people dying annually, 730 people dying daily and 30 people hourly, for 80 years straight. There are more atoms in a teaspoon of water than there are teaspoons of water in the Atlantic. Similarly, there are more molecules of air in one breath than there are breaths in the atmosphere. That means that every breath you take probably contains at least one molecule of Newton's last breath. That in World War II, an American airman by the name of Alan McGee survived a free fall from 22,000 featuring without a parachute and becoming a prisoner of war for 2 years. In 1943 he was in a B-17 making a bombing run over France when plane's wing was shot off by German fighters. As the plane entered a spin he leapt out without a parachute and immediately lost consciousness from the altitude. After falling 4 miles he crashed through the glass ceiling of the St. Nazaire railroad station and onto the floor below where he was captured as a prisoner of war. He suffered almost 30 shrapnel wounds, several broken bones, severe damage to his nose, eyes, lungs, kidneys, and his right arm was nearly severed off. His captors treated him back to health. He was liberated in 1945 and awarded an Air Medal and a Purple Heart. There's a place in the universe called the Eridanus supervoid that's a billion light years across. When you speak inside your mind, small muscles in your throat mimic the formation of each word. Eels actually have 2 jaws, the first being like a normal jaw, the second being hidden in their throat. The secondary jaw lunges forward when the eel bites down on prey, bites down on the piece within the mouth and bites a chunk out of it, pulling it down the throat. Think about the alien in the movie Alien. The secondary mini mouth they use is based off an eel's anatomy. When the jaws open wide, and there's more jaws inside, that's a Murray. The fact that recently a group of scientists went to investigate a forest of trees that were able to live for thousands of years on their own, and ended up finding traces of massive radiation in the very early rings of the trunks. All of them had this in the same spots, around the same time. Judging by the average age of the trees and the rings the radiation was located in, there was a battle involving the Crusaders, Deus Vult BTW, and one of the soldiers' uncovered diaries had described seeing the image of the cross burning like fire in the sky, which had given them extra morale and then they won the battle. So, using logic, you can guess that this cross in the sky was what caused the radiation, and I can hear you thinking how in the frick. Well, I can proudly tell you that literally no one knows. That France was still executing by guillotine during the first Star Wars movie. That humans almost went extinct 75,000 years ago. Total population drop into around 15,000, destroying much of our genetic diversity. Betelgeuse is the 31st biggest star we know of in the universe. It is so big that, if you replaced our sun and put Betelgeuse in its spot, Betelgeuse would almost reach Jupiter's orbit. There is more bacteria living inside a single person's digestive system than the number of human beings who have ever existed in history. The rate of concussions is higher in women's college soccer than it is in men's college football. There are roughly 200 corpses on Mount Everest that are used as waypoints for climbers. Life pro tip: climb a mountain in a silly costume so that you become everyone's favorite waypoint. School buses used to be orange before they changed them to yellow for visibility. US Coast Guard helicopters used to be yellow before they changed them to orange for visibility. If you were being sucked into a black hole and could somehow stop, turn around and look back out into space, you could see the whole fate of the universe play out before your eyes due to time dilation. You could watch the birth and death of stars in the blink of an eye. It would be quite a light show. T-Rexes lived closer to a live Miley Cyrus concert than they did to a Stegosaurus. If you count how many times a cricket chirps in 15 seconds and add 37, you get the temperature in Fahrenheit. No one knows how an ant colony works, yet an ant colony emerges from many ants. Each single ant is following its basic impulses and reflexes based on its immediate surroundings, and yet the colony can react to intruders, build more tunnels, and gather food as if it were one large entity. It's a commonly known fact, but I think it's pretty mind-boggling when you think about it. The McDonald's coffee lawsuit. The woman wasn't the one driving. The car was parked. She was in her late 70s. She sustained third-degree burns. The coffee melted her clothing and skin, which fused her legs together and her labia shut. She went into shock and nearly died. McDonald's had received hundreds of burn complaints already from serving their coffee at near Boggling. They offered the lady $800. After 20 years of imagining some dummy scalding herself while driving, this was pretty mind-boggling. That despite what they might have you believe, literally no one has ever had their mind blown by a BuzzFeed article. The longest piece of literature, in the English language, is 3.5 million words long, and counting, is written by a 21-year-old guy in Arizona, and is a fan fiction of Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Mammoth roamed the world when the pyramids were being built. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.